Eleanor was born around 1122 in either Bordeaux or the Castle of Bellin. It's not really known. Eleanor, she got a really high education, which was unusual for the time. She learned Latin, music, and literature, as well as writing, hunting, and hawking. So after the deaths of her brother and her father in 1177, Eleanor was left with a really extensive inheritance and was, of course, the most eligible heiress in all of Europe. And in the same year, at only 15 years old, she married Louis le Jeune, who was heir to Louis the VI of France. Soon news reached them that Louis, King of France, had died only a week earlier, and on Christmas Day in 1137, Louis and Eleanor were crowned King and Queen of France. Queen Eleanor had a pressing problem. She had not given Louis an heir. After 7 years of marriage, she failed to conceive, already having one miscarriage. Then, in 1144, she finally gave birth to a girl named Marie, who would eventually become the Countess of Champagne. On December 24th, 1144, Edessa, which was the capital of a Latin country on the far side of the Euphrates, fell to the Saracens. Louis was thrilled with the idea, for he believed that it was every Christian's duty to save the land of Christ from the infidel. Even Eleanor was enthusiastic. On June 11th, 1147, Louis and Eleanor left Saint Denis with their army, and they arrived in Antioch, where they were welcomed by the Prince Raymond of Poitiers, Eleanor's uncle. Louis wanted to move on to Jerusalem, while Raymond suggested they attack Aleppo and perhaps recapture Edessa. Eleanor favored her uncle, angrily opposing her husband, and went as far as to propose a divorce. In Jerusalem, Louis' attack on Damascus failed with heavy losses, and in 1149 the king and queen left the Holy Land in separate ships. After returning to Paris, Eleanor gave birth to a second daughter, Alex, in 1150. Her marriage to Louis was in ruins. On March 21st, 1152, the marriage between Louis and Eleanor was void on grounds that they were cousins, even though the real reason was because Eleanor had failed to give Louis a male heir.
Alright, so pretty much like right after she got divorced from Louis, Eleanor goes to this guy. He's like 19, he's a kid, and there's these rumors that she was already boning his dad before that. And his name's Henry Plantagenet, and he's kind of cute, and his maternal grandfather was the King of England. His name was Henry I, but he didn't have any male heirs, but he had this daughter named Matilda. And when he died, he wanted Matilda to become the Queen of England, but nobody else liked that except for Matilda and her husband. And so England was kind of having a crisis over that for a while. And through his mother, Henry was the claimant. And so 8 weeks after she gets divorced from Louis, she gets married to Henry, who is equally related to her, even though she got divorced from Louis, say that they were cousins. And they get married, and then 2 years later, they become King and Queen of England because they finally went out against his mom's cousin, who was saying that he was King of England. And so Eleanor and Henry had like so many babies, so many. There was like 8 of them, and like 7 of them lived into adulthood, which never happens in medieval times, okay? Death is everywhere. It's a terrible time to be, even if you're rich. It's awful. Don't do it. And so anyways, life is kind of okay for her. She's got babies now, she's the Queen of England, and she has a decent amount of power, especially because her husband's like campaigning in France like all the damn time. So she gets to stay home and she gets to be regent and stuff. But the problem is that they have strong personalities, and Mr. Henry Plantagenet, former Count of Anjou and current Henry II, King of England, he's got a lot of side chicks, including Miss Rosamund Clifford, and even though she probably didn't care that much, there was this legend that she poisoned her and killed her brutally, but that's a story for another day. And so after a while, after she got past childbearing years and she had a youngest son, John, they separated, and she goes off to this Count of Poitiers, And she sets up this court of love where they have all these beautiful troubadours and arts, and they sit around and they talk about their love problems, and they like have everything be going pretty good up until her oldest son Henry decides that he's kind of pissed off that his dad isn't giving him and his brother's land, and he's like, you know what? We're gonna revolt. What do you say, Mom? And Eleanor's like, yeah, sounds good. And so they try to revolt, and they fail. And so the father and son, they kind of make up a little bit, but, you know, old Henry, he's not too happy with his ex-wife, and he's like, look, Ellie, this ain't gonna fly. And so he basically keeps her under house arrest for, like, the next 10 years or so, up until he dies. And then along comes her lovely son, Richard.
After Richard takes power, his first order is to release Eleanor from captivity. After Eleanor follows him until about 1182, she was granted her full dower back. Eleanor decides to find a wife for Richard because he was trying to hit on some French chick, and Eleanor was like, no, we don't like the French, we don't want any of that. So she goes out and finds Berengaria, and they get married. Richard set out, and he was taken captive by Duke Leopold. And Eleanor was like, crap, I can't go help him because if she left the realm, then no one would be in power there. So she ended up staying in England and took all the power that Richard had at the time. And she was writing letters to the Pope, and she wrote her first one expressing her sorrows and her real feelings towards the whole situation with Richard. But the Pope never responded, so she wrote the Pope a second letter saying, like, hey, you know, you got to go get Richard. I'm pissed off, and you're just being a little bitch. Then, finally, John bribed Duke Leopold. Richard's ransom would be 100 silver marks and a bunch of hostages. So Eleanor set out, and she started raising a bunch of taxes and trying to raise money. So Richard finally was released, but he had to help Duke Leopold for a while with his political stuff before he could actually come back. And then Richard died.
What you say? Oh, that you only meant well, 'cause you did. What you say?
He ended up leaving it to John because Eleanor was believed to have changed Richard's heart right before he died.